White Sox pregame show, coming to you live from Studio A of our CHGO offices in the West Loop of Chicago. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, the full CHGO White Sox crew on a Friday. Got CHGO White Sox beat writer Vinnie Duber. You can follow him on X at Vinnie Duber. That's Herb Lawrence.
Hello.
You can follow him at Ecknerwall23. Again, I'm Sean Anderson. You can follow me at Sean_W_Anderson. You can follow the show on Twitter or whatever at CHGO_White Sox. Hey, everyone in the chat, what's up? Good to see Matthew, Daniel, Alejandro, Schlesh Poppy, Fred. It is a Friday, but all of our usuals and regulars are hanging out with us. That's why they call them regulars. So it's good to see everybody. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button, and we are excited to chat with you about the White Sox. We touched upon this on our show yesterday, but didn't really flesh it out. We read the statement from Tim Anderson, but his 6-game suspension got reduced to 5 games, and he will start serving that suspension tonight. We look at the lineup, and we see not only Elvis Andrus leading off and playing shortstop, but Lenyn Sosa playing second base. And we can also talk about Eloy Jimenez, who I guess who's replacing Tim Anderson, I guess, is my question to you.
No one. You can't.
Right.
You're suspended. You that place that is lost. So the paternity list greets Eloy. So he'll be away for 3 games in the stead of both Tim and Eloy. Lenyn comes up.
So you'll see 5 straight days of Lenyn Sosa, you'd have to imagine. Obviously, Zach Remillard is part of that equation as well. So now that I think about it, maybe not 5 straight days, but the point being that Elvis Andrus will be at shortstop. So if there's an opportunity here with Tim Anderson suspended, Lenyn Sosa has it in front of him. We'll see how much of an opportunity that is. And
Darryl Van Schouwen of the Sun-Times is out in Colorado, and we did have the statement from Tim Anderson, but there was some quotes from Tim from the locker room today. Quote, "You go through things to get to the other thing. I've got to be better. I have to be better. I will be better. Keep working, and I won't take anything for granted. Keep trying to better myself as a whole on and off the field, and I just keep pushing." And then he continued, "I just wanted to say what I believe and will hopefully say it well with whoever received it, but I definitely wanted to be real about it, be authentic about it, accountability, apologize, a little bit of everything. The biggest thing was really just be real with it." What I want to ask you, Herb, is I don't know if you saw the clip of Austin Hedges on the Rose rotation today, but Austin Hedges, former catcher of Cleveland, basically kind of soundboarding what every Guardian has said, that Tim is known for talking smack, that he can't repeat what Tim says, but that he is known for starting stuff on the field, and that he's surprised that this didn't happen sooner with the way the Guardians and Sox have been playing one another. So we kind of can close the book on this, I guess, until they play again. But the suspensions are wrapped up, 3 games to 2 games for Ramirez, 6 games to 5 games for Tim. What do you make of the whole situation now, 2 weeks out?
I'm glad that Tim has done the mea culpa. He has taken some accountability for what his role in the fight was. I think we were talking earlier, and our producer, Steven, kind of has the same thoughts that I do. Like, he apologized, and I like the apology, but in the apology, he still left a little bit like, well, I'm not going to tell you what Cleveland said to me type of stuff. Like, if you're going to apologize, go all the way through. Or if you don't feel like you're wrong, don't apologize. Either way, it seems like sometimes you apologize, but you also leave a little bit room and a little rationality for yourself. But I like the quotes today from Darryl Van Schouwen got from him in the clubhouse. That is very, very mature of Tim to say that I need to look at myself and be better on and off the field and keep it pushing so I can go through this tough time, so I can go through and meet the guy that I'm going to be next year. So it's good that he's not in this second apology or even statement, he's not really deflecting what his accountability is to what Cleveland said, just saying, hey, that was me. That's my fault. I got to take that accountability, and I'll sit these 5 games out and think about it. And during this time, I hope he feels like what he did was wrong, because, yes, you might have been egged on, but still, fighting in baseball and in life, it's not the answer.
I mean, listen, TA's got a fine line to walk, because I think we've talked over and over again, part of the thing that makes him great is having that edge and having that swagger. Is part of that thing that makes him so important to this team, is bringing a sense of confidence that when he's not on is sorely missing from this lineup. Part of that is the way he acts on the field. And I think that, we heard Jose Ramirez talking about disrespecting the game and all of that. And the first thing that comes to my mind is, guys, stop telling Tim Anderson how to play baseball. Let him play the way he wants to play. But like I said, it's a fine line. You can't go out there being a jerk for no reason, and certainly when it comes to physical altercations, you shouldn't be doing that. So, there's a fine line that he has to walk between bringing what the White Sox need, what he needs to be successful, and what he needs to be an entertaining ball player and get himself and his teammates going. On the other side of that, throwing your glove down on the field and putting up your dukes is not a way to do that. That's over the line. In my opinion, maybe he's got a different way that he read the way that played out. And so, I'm not going to jump into his head or anything like that. And maybe Cleveland did say some things that they shouldn't have because, again, Herb, your first instinct is like, oh, sticks and stones, what does it matter? You can't let the way that people are talking to you affect you. But we've heard some stuff last year from Josh Donaldson that warranted, the kind of reaction that Tim Anderson had to those very offensive words that Josh Donaldson said. So I'm not saying that's what was repeated against Cleveland, but you cannot take really a blanket statement or a blanket approach on either side when it comes to what really, in the end of the day, strikes me as like on-field smack talk. But was it something more than that? We don't know. And he leaves it open in that apology to maybe be something more than that got him going. I think the bottom line is, he uses his confidence, his swagger, and the way he acts, his personality, very much to his benefit. But that's not necessarily 100% of the time. It's not necessarily always a 100% good thing, right?
I mean,
as we've seen.
Yeah. I liked your point about quit telling Tim Anderson how to play baseball and what is and not disrespecting the game, because we see it in softball. I think it was the Reader or Scandal team. Our ringers were kind of being loud, I guess, in the first couple of innings. And then they just started being very weird and acting odd. Like, I don't know, when people get competitive, people act weird. So I'm not going to look too much into that fight. But we don't see this issue with Minnesota. We kind of saw something with Kansas City, but there really hasn't been anything since the initial bat flip with Tim in Kansas City. There hasn't really been anything with Detroit. Like,
they had one spat with Detroit. Huh? That's how he got suspended that one time, where they met at second base.
That was with Abreu.
Yeah, and
the reason he got suspended was because he hit he touched an umpire. Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like Cleveland's soft. That's what I'm taking away.
I don't know. They don't play that way. They sure as heck don't play that way, right? They're out there. They won a division basically last year by being, heart, hustle, and muscle kind of team, right?
Yeah, but it was like everyone doesn't believe in us. So, of course, they're going to be like, oh, you're pushing us around. We have to fight, stand up and fight for ourselves because we're the little guy. And it's like, I don't know. You look back at that play, the whole thing was that, like, TA tagged J-Ram hard, and it's like he barely touched him. Like, I don't understand. It seemed like Jose Ramirez slid into second base looking for a fight.
Yeah.
And he got one.
I think he was already pissed about the talking to Gabriel Arias the way he did while Tim was on the bench and Arias is on the field.
But it sounds like Tim does this no matter who the opponent is.
Exactly. He's a trash talker, and maybe he means it in lighthearted ways, but people like, you're coming off a little rough, Tim. But yeah, it seems like after all the stuff that has settled and the dust has settled, it seems like Jose Ramirez went in like, hey, you're not going to do this to me. And he's the one who instigated it by hitting it and then pointing in his face. But also, Tim's got to know that he can't react to Jose Ramirez's instigation the way he did, and especially not the way that Jose ended the fight.
Well, and shout out to Fred too. It's good to point out that in the AL Central winning locker room after they clinched the division, the Guardians team was chanting "Fire Tony" and "Fuck the White Sox." So again, it does seem like there was some, like Austin had just said, there was something already brewing well before Ramirez slid into second base and well before Tim was saying anything to Gabriel Arias.
We've heard of that. It was going on Friday night, the night before. It's like Herb said. This is probably just there's probably a lot of this that is just the way Tim acts on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And then there's maybe some of it that has to do with it being perceived as going in a direction that was not everyday kind of way, right? So, you bring up that stuff at the end of last year. I think that sticks in fans' minds, but that was probably more of a reaction to the fact that everybody picked the White Sox to run away with that division,
Right.
and that the White Sox spent the last half of the season saying we thought we were going to run away with that division again. I'm sure a few of those quotes made their way to Cleveland.
Yeah, I bet. So we'll talk a little bit more about Tim post-game likely, especially if Lenyn Sosa starts playing well or anything. But let's look at the starting Sox because we'll talk a little bit about Lenyn Sosa here. Leading off for the White Sox and playing shortstop will be Elvis Andrus, batting second, and in left field, Andrew Benintendi. Batting third, Luis Robert Jr. in center field. Batting fourth, Andrew Vaughn at first base. Batting fifth, Yohan Moncada at third base. Batting sixth, Gavin Sheets at designated hitter. Batting seventh, Yasmani Grandal at catcher. Batting eighth, Trace Thompson in right field. And batting ninth, Lenyn Sosa at second base. And again, this quote is from Daryl on Twitter. This is Pedro on Lenyn Sosa. We're going to take that day by day. When we sent him down, we talked about the type of baseball we wanted him to play, and he's back here and he's playing tonight, and we'll evaluate it day by day. I want to see him play up here and compete for a job, not just this year, but next year. There's a certain style of baseball we want to see him play, and he's going to have to meet that style. And to ask elaborate further on what that style is, whatever it takes to win a baseball game, he has the tools to do that. He can run, he can make contact, he can have a two-strike approach if he wants to. He can bunt. He's a smart player. Those are the things I'll speak to him about, and playing time will be on him. So it does seem like, at least over the next 5 games, that we might see Lenyn Sosa. Because, I mean, that was the one thing last year. We saw some of Lenyn Sosa, but a lot of it was Lenyn Sosa on the bench.
It should be exclusively Lenyn Sosa at second base. When Tim comes back from the suspension, it's been real, Elvis. It's been real. But we're going to play the guy that we know is probably going to be in the organization next year and see what he can do instead of a guy that we know is not going to be here and just taking up a roster spot. He's doing well in his last couple games. Elvis Andrus has showed that he should be here, but Lenyn Sosa should be getting the lion's share of the playing time, and over Zach Remillard, because Zach Rimillard's in his 30s right now, and I don't think he's the White Sox future as far as being a second baseman. We don't know what we have in Lenyn Sosa as yet. Every time he comes to the major leagues, it's not great. The AAA numbers do not translate to the major leagues. Hopefully this time he takes his time. He understands that, there's no pressure on him to hit a bunch of home runs to have this team going to the playoffs like it might have been last year. This year it could just be, I'm just playing the same game I've been playing for my whole life, and now I'm in Colorado starting this major league journey, and I could just go out and hit a couple home runs and stick here. And that'll be my wish for him to be taking over this week, so we have no doubt that he's going to be the second baseman for the foreseeable future, or shortstop, whatever it's going to be. Because I'm just Elvis again batting first. It irritates me to no end, especially since the guy who's batting second does very well as a leadoff hitter. I think he hits over 300 and gets on base at 36% clip. So just get rid of that Elvis Andrus thing, not the person. I don't have anything against him, but I just think it's like Pedro's blankie. He's like, I gotta have Elvis in the lineup for no goddamn reason. Ugh, get him out of there. Come on, Lenny, do some work.
I mean, I think, Herb, you're talking about the positive end of that equation, right? But I think the reason you put Lenyn Sosa in the lineup on a regular basis over the last few weeks here is not necessarily to make sure that he runs away with the job, but to see if he can play at the major league level, to see what sort of opportunity he deserves to get heading into next season. As we've talked about over and over again, there are not a lot of places on this roster where it looks like or I should say on the position player side of the roster where the White Sox can make significant change. One of those places is second base. Mm-hmm. Now, Lenyn Sosa could come up and hit 400 over the last month and a half, and it could make Rick Hahn's job easy going into the offseason. Or the opposite could be true. He could struggle, and it's the White Sox need to go out and get a second baseman this winter. I think from a ease standpoint, considering the amount of pitching they might need to focus on this winter, it would certainly behoove the White Sox to get Lenyn Sosa going at the major league level. But you're not going to do that with a ridiculously small sample size of starting every so often because you've got to start Elvis, you got to start Zach, whatever. Listen, Zach Remillard maybe in the minds of the White Sox, heck, we saw them go into spring training with Romy Gonzalez as their starting second baseman. What is Zach Remillard if not Romy Gonzalez 2.0 here, right? So we'll see what happens. But I would imagine that, or certainly my thought would be, if Lenyn Sosa does not grab hold of this job here in the last month of the season, second base better be on their shopping list this winter.
Yeah, I mean, they got a lot to shop for this winter. I mean, and too, like, how much are we spending? I mean, that's like the biggest question still on my mind is, again, if they are going to be adding, they still got to add to that rotation. They got to add to second base. They got to add a catcher.
Bullpen.
It's a big list. Yep. So we don't need to spend on bullpen again. They did that. I didn't like that.
Well, they're going to need pitcher. They're going to need pitchers to be out there. Is my point. Yeah,
I guess
they don't need to go get Kendall Graveman and Joe Kelly again, but they're going to need somebody to throw relief innings.
Let's spend 33% of the budget on guys we only use if we win.
I think if they just go with the people that got on the team right now, the Lane Ramseys of the
Let's
world,
go.
like I'll be fine with it, even
He's
though
so tall.
And you can't teach that.
He's so tall.
Just reached over and just touched the catcher's glove with his arm.
I walked into the Wrigley clubhouse over the weekend, or during, I have no idea what day it is, obviously, earlier this week, and I saw, the Wrigley Visitors Clubhouse is quite cramped. There are some pillars, in the middle. There's a big pop machine. Like, it's hard to kind of see who is where. You have to kind of poke your head around. Well, I see a tall, very tall brunette man in the back corner, and I'm like, oh, well, Lucas is here. I was like, oh, I had to correct myself. I'm like, oh, Lucas is not here. That's Lane Ramsey.
he's like California. Yeah, I mean, Lane's a little bit taller too.
He's so tall.
I feel like even Lucas would look short against.
I don't know about short, but shorter. Yeah,
probably go up to his nose. It's hilarious, right? I mean, where's 3 inches? Like
Lucas is what, 6'7"?
Like 6'6".
Yeah.
Lane Ramsey's 6'9".
Yeah, so 6'6", 6'9", that's 3 inches.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably like right.
It's like that much.
Yeah, that's noticeable. So Lenyn Sosa, since he's been set down to AAA on May 13th, 60 games. Pedro mentioned the two-strike approach. We really haven't seen much of that just from a stat line scouting perspective. 243 batting average, 274 on base percentage, 466 slugging, 740.
He's only getting on base 274?
Yeah.
That's not very good.
Not walking at all.
70 strikeouts, 11 walks.
Yeah.
But 61 hits, and I think 26 of them have been either a double or a homer. So some pop in that bat, and it's a good place to show off some pop in Coors Field. So we'll see what happens with Lenyn tonight.
That's what I would. If I'm Lenyn Sosa, I'm just going for the downs. What are they going to do? If you hit home runs, they're like, oh, you're in the lineup. If you strike out, you're going to go back to the minors. You were probably going to go there anyways. Leave nothing to chance, Lenyn.
Hey,
this is your chance to just show and be impressive for the White Sox scouting people. And so they don't go getting a second baseman like Whit Merrifield or etc. players that we brought up last couple weeks out, Vinny. So I would just, I'm batting ninth. It's Jimmy Lambert's brother. I'm going to crush this bum.
Pete.
Yeah.
Pete Lambert.
Sounds
Jim
like he
and
should be
Pete.
selling insurance.
Wasn't there like a Pete and Jim like Nickelodeon show?
You're thinking of the adventures of Pete and Pete.
Oh, Pete and Pete.
Double
and
Pete. Yeah.
Double Pete. All right. Let's talk about the Rockies starting lineup, and then we'll get into the brother of Jimmy. Leading off for the Rockies, Charles Blackmon in right field.
Nasty.
Chuck Nasty. We don't know him personally. Can we call him that?
Yeah.
Okay. Batting second, Ezekiel Tovar at shortstop. Ooh. Batting third, Ryan McMahon at third base. Batting fourth, Brendan Rodgers at second base. Batting fifth, Nolan Jones in left field. Batting sixth, Elias Diaz at catcher. I believe the All-Star Game MVP. Batting seventh, Juris.
What?
Yeah, because he hit the home run to give him.
I was in Maine. I had no idea.
Oh,
what
yeah,
happened in the All-Star
yeah.
game.
I didn't watch it either.
It was 2-2, and then Diaz in like the sixth or seventh inning hit a go-ahead homer.
I'm going to let you finish this lineup eventually, but who are any of these guys?
Seventh, Jerkson Profar. We know him, designated hitter. Batting eighth, Michael Toglia at first base, and batting ninth, Brenton Doyle in center field.
There's literally 4 people I don't know in that lineup. It's like that A's lineup last year we were doing.
Every day I do these lineup graphics. I usually just know all these players. This is the one time I had to click each player's name to see their first name as well. I did not know who any of these guys were.
I assume Chris Bryant is hurt because he's been hurt the whole time he's been a Rocky, but goodness gracious, there's no one there. CJ Cron got traded. This is just trash.
Todd Helton's not there anymore.
No.
This is the only team in the National League with a worse record than the White Sox.
Yes, and I was listening to DNVR pregame with Susie, and I'm blanking on the other.
I think it's Patrick.
Name. It's not Patrick though.
No,
because
sure.
I know what Patrick's
at
like.
the ballpark.
Yeah, Patrick's at the ballpark, I believe. I don't know who this gentleman was, so, but shout out to him. Very good speaker, eloquent. But they brought up the Rockies in their franchise history somehow have not lost 100 games.
What?
Wow.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Not lost 100 games.
Oh, this team's gonna.
Right. So, and I think we'll talk a little bit more about this on the post game show. But I found it interesting that John Greenberg, now that the Athletic kind of what's it called? Took a machete to their White Sox coverage, and now John Greenberg's just covering baseball in Chicago. We do get a little blend of Cubs and Sox crossover, and the Cubs used to be bad. Right?
For a long time.
Yeah, right.
Famously.
And John wrote today in The Athletic, this situation reminds me of an anecdote Jed Hoyer told me about in the 2012 season for a feature I did in 2019. Near the end of that 2012 season, the Cubs went to Colorado with both teams sporting a 59-94 record. One of those teams is going to finish with the second worst record, and with Houston locked in on Mark Appel at number 1, the right to draft Chris Bryant. Hoyer said, I went out there for that series. It must have been after we shut Samardzija down. Our starting pitching was not Coors Field ready is the most appropriate way to put it. We got pounded in all 3 games, and that sealed us getting the number 2 pick with Bryant, end quote. Of course, the Rockies got Bryant after the 2021 season. But I do find that interesting that, hey, maybe they're also fighting for draft position.
Are we talking about draft position?
Draft lottery position, too.
Yeah,
it's
the lottery.
Because, I mean, hey, maybe you get the 3rd pick, but the 4th team gets the number 1 overall pick. It's crazy.
Yeah, and they picked John Gray with that 3rd pick. I mean, he's turned into a good pitcher, but no starting pitcher has really been good as the Colorado Rockies. So it's been tough to get. If they would have got Chris Bryant and he would have turned into the guy that he was with the Cubs, mercy. Like, he would have had a lot more home runs than he has right now. And then his career's kind of sad right now.
Well, and if he was a Rocky the whole time, it would have made sense for them to give him $182 million. That was so random.
It was a lot of money.
He was the guy.
Well, they do this fairly regularly. They did it with Arenado and then immediately traded him.
Yes.
Then they did it with Brian. He can't play anymore.
And they gave the Cardinals cash for Arenado.
Herb. They did it with Mike Hampton. Don't forget, too.
Oh, my God.
Mike Hampton?
Yes, the lefty.
Tons of money.
Wow.
They're like, oh, he's a good hitter, too. He'll come here and do work. I mean, he didn't pitch well. So he didn't hit well either. Golly, they gave a lot of money to Mike Hampton for no damn reason. And then Ubaldo Jimenez, too, get a couple dollars, too.
Well, he came up with them.
He did.
Yeah.
But he was already kind of decent. But, yeah, I can't believe they gave Chris Bryant all that
Is
money.
he their best pitcher ever, Ubaldo Jimenez?
I was thinking about that. I think so. He did start an All-Star game.
He might be their best pitcher ever, yeah.
Okay, well, now I got to look that up. But I'm looking up his contract. 4-year, $10 million. No, he was traded before he signed a contract.
He went to Baltimore, right?
Yeah, well, we went to Cleveland in that break.
Oh, yeah.
And then he became a free agent in 2013, signed a 50-year, 4-year deal with the Baltimore Orioles. And we know how that ended with them not putting in Zach Britton. Okay, so real quick, let's look at Peter Lambert, who is not the best Rockies pitcher of all time, but maybe one day. Your starting pitcher matchup for tonight is Michael Kopech for the Sox. In 2023, he's at 112 innings pitched, a 4.58 ERA, 92 hits allowed, 116 Ks, 72 walks, which leads the majors or league?
I think majors. I'll double check.
Was it bold or was it just bold or bold and italicized?
It was
on Baseball Reference.
I think it was just bold.
Then that would be leading the American League.
AL leader.
I'll check though.
Yeah, it's either
72
him
walks
or Blake Snell. He's got a bunch of walks too, but pitches well otherwise.
And then a 95 ERA plus. Major league average is 100. And Peter Lambert, Jimmy Lambert's brother, younger brother, 59 1/3 innings pitched, a 5.46 ERA, 62 hits allowed, 51 strikeouts, 23 walks, and an ERA plus of 93. Let's start with Michael first, obviously, because we know a lot more about Michael Kopech than we do Peter Lambert. What are we expecting here from Kopech? I know you said that it might be a firework display here.
It's either or. Like, that lineup is crap, but they're in Colorado where the air is thin, and so we can see that 7-inning pitch, 10 strikeouts, who gives up only 1 earned and walks like 4. It's sparkling, or it's the opposite, like 4 2/3. He gives up 6, walks a lot, and then doesn't strike out a lot. I'm expecting him to attack this lineup. There's no one in that lineup that really can hurt you, except for Chuck Nasty at the beginning of it. So Michael, this is one of his, let's see, probably got another month and a half of starts. So this is one of the ones that you got to take advantage of. And the whole month of September is pretty much like this too. So if he sees that lineup and says, I got to attack these guys. If they hit me hard, they hit me hard. But there's no excuse to put these guys on base in front of people who can also hit you hard. So I expect Michael to go out there and actually execute his pitch as well.
I mean, those numbers that you guys just flashed really tell the story of the feast or famine, because his ERA is not out of control. He's right next to Peter Lambert, who's got his ERA is a whole point higher, than Michael's. His ERA plus, he's right around a league average pitcher. So you know how good the good moments are because we've seen how bad the bad moments have been. This is a guy who, as we mentioned, leads the American League in walks and has given up a whole ton of home runs. He's right near the top of the leaderboard in that category too, and yet he's a quote-unquote league average pitcher. Like, he's not the worst pitcher in baseball by any stretch. So, yeah, Herb, it could be good or it could be bad. Unfortunately for Michael, there's no way of knowing what guy's going to show up the way he has been inconsistent this year. I wouldn't like to pick a guy or put a guy who has had a ton of problems giving up the long ball in Coors Field. That would seem to be a recipe for disaster. But the way baseball works out is you probably throw him out there and he's not going to give up a fly ball that goes very much past the infield, right?
That's the thing is, I mean, it's just you look at this lineup and there's no one that's great. I mean, Chuck Nasty was all right, but he's kind of peaked.
Yeah, he's older.
I really think that, especially knowing what that air does to breaking balls, Michael's going to have to rely on his fastball, which is probably where he's most comfortable.
Yep.
So this might be a fine start. As long as he's able to locate his fastball, I think he could probably dominate this lineup, but we'll wait and see. Let's go to click to picks for tonight. Vinny, why don't you just lead us off?
I'm going to go with Andrew Benintendi. There's really, again, if we're talking about consistency, there's really only been one guy to pick in this lineup, and that's Luis Robert Jr., and you see his name under Herb's face there. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Andrew Benintendi just because I had to pick somebody, and it seems like if we're talking about consistency, he's very unhappy with the season that he's had, but he told me the other day he really doesn't want to be just a singles hitter, just a slap hitter anymore. But guess what? He's been pretty okay at being a singles hitter, even while nothing else has really gone the way that he wants it to go. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Benny. Do I have to pick a result here also?
If you want.
I'll say the White Sox lose 5-2.
I'm going with Luis Robert Jr. Pete Lambert from San Dimas High. It rocks. Will give up home runs. I think he's given up 12 home runs this year in the 50-plus innings he's pitched this year. And he's in the perfect place to give up a home run to Luis Robert. Please, if you go to DraftKings, bet on Luis Robert to hit a home run off of Pete Lambert or anybody on the
plus
Colorado
280
Rockies.
today. I just checked that.
Oh, so low.
I got plus 310, so you got to get to those markets early,
And
folks.
I think the White Sox are going to win this game. It's going to be a high-scoring affair. I think we're going 8-7.
Oh, okay. All right. I have a little bit more faith in the Sox today, and I don't know why. I think Michael Kopech will do well today. I think Robert does hit a homer, but I got the last pick, so I'm going to go with Andrew Vaughn. No real reason. I honestly, if I was going to pick two players to hit home runs, I would pick Robert because it makes sense, and I'd pick Benintendi because it would be hilarious. So
this weekend could be good for me. Come on, Benny. Just go for the downs each time.
Sox win 5-2. You said 5-2 other way?
That they lose 5-2.
Yeah, I'll take 5-2.
Herb
Sox.
has the White Sox scoring 8 runs. How many home runs is Luis Robert Jr. hitting in this game?
Well, he's hitting one, and then
Herb wants to wear that damn chain.
A lot of other players are going to hit some home runs. I think we're going to at least get 3 home runs from the White Sox side.
What if Luis Robert Jr. hits 3 home runs?
Oh, man.
What if all 3 of our guys hit home runs?
That's impossible.
It's impossible.
That means
The Andrews and Luis?
That means that Vinny's got to get a hit home run.
Yeah, you can do it.
I mean,
he said he was going to get 10.
Well, this is the weekend to do it.
There it is. I mean, he can
Catch
hit
up.
Yeah,
10 in 3 days?
He told Brock Holt he's saving him. He's saving him for Coors Field. It's a good place to run into a couple.
Fred thinks Trace is going to run into one. He's used to it as being a Dodger.
Yeah, too. Peter Lambert struggles against righties, so I mean that's.
Is the last time the White Sox went to Colorado the time where Lurie got picked off at third base?
No, that was in Tampa.
No, he got picked off in Colorado.
It was last year, Graveman. It was last year Graveman blew that save. Remember?
Yeah, no, that was in Colorado.
Was that the same game?
Yeah, because
I believe it's the same game.
Liam said he was feeling sick.
Right. He had the altitude sickness.
Yeah, so that's why Graveman was in.
Okay.
It's a real thing, too.
Well, because Liam blew the save the night before.
Yeah, right. And
Right.
then I think
Yeah.
That was a bad 2 days in Colorado.
Yeah, I blocked him out of my memory. I forgot Yuri Garcia existed. No, I didn't. Real quick, who is the all-time leading pitcher in Baseball Reference WAR for the Rockies?
Is it not Ubaldo? Is that why you're quizzing us?
No, it was Ubaldo.
It's
I was
Ubaldo.
trying to,
All right,
I was trying to throw you off.
Yeah.
But fun to watch because Ubaldo is at 18.3 for his Baseball Reference WAR. Kyle Freeland, who's currently active, 17.9.
Oh, he's on the hunt.
So 0.4 WAR away from tying Ubaldo Jimenez
Wow.
for all-time Rockies pitcher. And it is funny that the first, 7 of these guys, first eight of their players are all hitters.
I'm surprised that any pitchers are in the top 20.
Literally. Hey, Herman, it's Ubaldo Jimenez, Kyle Freeland, and Herman Marquez. So a nice 3-player run, and then Vinny Castilla breaks it up.
Vinny Castilla, Dante Bichette. Who's the other Blake Street bomber? Larry Walker.
Armando Galarraga.
Oh, yeah.
Big cat.
Big cat.
But yeah, Helton, Walker, Arenado, Tulo, Trevor Story, Cargo, Chuck Nasty, Matt Holliday. That's a pretty good top 8.
He still hasn't touched home plate.
No, but he can apparently just produce
Great players.
Yeah, I mean,
goodness gracious.
how are both? He's a righty, and how do both of his kids lefties?
He probably told him, "Hey, I'm tying your right hand behind your back, and you're fucking hitting lefty."
Todd Helton just had those kids swinging lefty all day. That's Vinnie Duber. He's our CHGO White Sox beat writer. That's Herb Lawrence. You can follow him on Twitter at Hectorall23. I was thinking, should I give out the tags? At Vinnie Duber. I'm Sean Anderson, at Sean_W_Anderson. You can follow the show at CHGO_White Sox. Sox game starts in 7 minutes, so we'll talk to you after for the CHGO White Sox postgame. Bye.